episode 3 of the Breach of Etiquette podcast. We've got a lot to get through today, but first off, we have two new folks on the podcast. They're both awesome local players, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Doug, if you'd start.
I'm Douglas D. Been playing for a while. Just here to talk about the new floor rules and some other stuff we got in the podcast today.
I'm Daniel Edrum. I've been playing since around Gold Edition. I've been a local tournament winner. Go to Gen Con a lot. Yeah, shut up, Doug. And I'm here to talk about...
You top 8'd the second chance this year, or was it top 4?
I top 4'd at Gen Con, and I won or top 4'd at second chance at Gen Con, and I won the local level 10 event store.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
You won a 7-man tournament, was it?
That was 10.
It was 10?
That was the same one the same size as the tournament that you won. Yeah, Inviter.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's the one that made Miki, remember? That tournament was to this day, I hate that card. Anyway.
Oh, we got plenty of Mikis for you to sign in the car.
All right, so moving on with the podcast.
So the first thing, and Doug, you mentioned this, but the first big thing that we want to talk about is the floor rules that never were. This past week, the new 2014 floor rules, at least the first draft, came out, and they were full of lots of changes to how Legend of the Five Rings tournaments are run and played. The most significant change, and the one that got the most people sort of up in arms, was changing the format of Legend of the Five Rings tournaments from what it is now, which is a best of one, which means you play one game and the winner of that game wins the match, to a best of 3 format. Best of 3 means that you play between 2 and 3 games, and the winner of those games wins the round. There's a lot of divided opinion in the community about this. So I'll go ahead and kick off the discussion by saying, what do you guys think? Peter, you're relatively new to the game, so do you have any input? You have done some tournaments.
I don't really know, actually, because I've played in one tournament, which was, one major tournament. I mean, we've done our local ones or whatever.
Local ones are tournaments, dude. It's fine. We still run them following the floor rules.
Yeah, I know. I mean, since I don't really know, I haven't been able to actually look over the Ivory rules really all that much, except for some of the stuff that Brian said in the development diaries and stuff like that. And so it's kind of hard for me to really say whether or not it actually work. I mean, I've played in, card tournaments of other games that were, best of 3 and everything like that. And they worked, rather well just because, the games were very, fast-paced and everything like that. So, I mean, if Ivory Edition's pace is going to be a lot faster, then I don't see any real problem with it.
I think you address a major point. A lot of people are used to... they look at an action EE that just says murderate a bunch of things versus with an Ivory. And your gut reaction is, oh my god, this is going to be slower. But I think... for the first Kote season, they do need to slow it down. They do need to, I think, a best of 1 match for right now is the ideal format. Until people get accustomed to what Ivory is and are prepared for it, then, I think we could safely go to best of 3 matches. I would like to note that people complained about the best of 1 for a long time because your tiebreakers, at the end of a tournament, you'll have maybe 1 to 0 7 and O's. Maybe 2 to 3 6 and 1s, depending on if you had a 7-0 or not. Then you'll have about maybe 9 5 and 2. So a top 8, you're having 4 guys who are out of luck. And since we're the best of 1, your opponent's match win percentage, your opponent's game win percentage, and their other the third tiebreaker, I forget what it's technically called.
Just for a heads up,
games lost or
correct.
Games won.
Yeah.
For a heads up for those who don't know. Legend of the Five Rings tournaments use the DCI program, which is the same used to run Magic tournaments. Yeah. And Magic tournaments are, as I'm sure many know, run in a best of 3 format. Go ahead, Doug.
And so that tiebreaker system that TOs and players were thinking was valid has actually been invalid this whole time because you've been running best of 1s. And so first... I don't even know how to word this. The first solution to their problem was to implement this X and 2 cut. and players hated it, but they hated the SOS method more.
Strength of schedule.
Yeah, strength. Thank you. So it's natural that AEG. I mean, you got to give them credit. They looked for a solution that was different than what they'd already tried, and I mean, the way they handled it, the way they announced it, tournament organizers weren't informed that the floor rules were changing, so that's probably where I think a lot of this flare came up from. But I do think it's a step in the right direction. They tried something new. They're hearing what customers are saying, and let's look at it this way: it took a week to reverse it, right?
They came out on Friday, and I believe the decision was walked back on Wednesday.
So Deneen, in 4 days, listened to his player base. A new guy at AG, by the way, not new to the actual game, but new to the company. So, I mean, how many of y'all actually know of a person at AG in 4 days heard that much fallback from a community and then changed the decision? I haven't.
Well, I think it's So, as some know, I've been in favor of a best-of-3 system for L5R for a long time, at least since 2011. I've spoken with some folks about it. I really feel that if you're making a competitive card game, if you're making a competitive game, best-of-3 is hard to beat as far as matchups go. I think it's fair to the players. And as far as me being a tournament organizer, to me, that's where the argument needs to end. Is it better for players? And I fully understand that people can't make those same kinds of calls that I can. And to me, I think that there's a lot of benefits to best of 3 that we wouldn't really think about. What I really enjoy about best of 3 as a structure is it lets you adapt to your opponent's strategies. And then your opponent has to adapt to whatever you're doing to break up their game plan. It forces... this is a term that is used a lot in game design circles, so I'll do my best to explain it. It's called emergent gameplay, where game designers set up the rules, but what players do with it is crazy. Minecraft is a great example of emergent gameplay. And I think that a best of 3 helps to create that in a card game situation, whereas, say, in Emperor Edition, for example, you essentially have 5 turns to figure out what your opponent is doing, what you can do to counter it, and that's not just having the meta. Having those answers is certainly a part of this kind of play, but in a larger sense, being able to modify the way you're playing the game, to modify your strategy to suit what your opponent is doing, is a very important skill, and best of 3 really, really rewards that. Whereas best of 1, you only have so many turns to try and accomplish the same kind of thing, and it's dramatically harder.
Well, I think how players are addressing, I guess what you're saying right now is adapting. So I sit down, I'm playing deck type X, and my opponent's playing deck type Y. Well, if I practice it a whole bunch, with just at like a local scene with a local player, that's where your information's coming from right now. And so if you'll notice, like, your groups that are doing consistently well are like the Northwest group with Case, Ornatov, Kyle, forget who, like Rory and Robbie. I can't remember his name. Sorry, guys. Those guys all do well because they all...
apology from Doug D. Very rare. Let me
Hey, one of them is a world champion. I don't even know his name. I should be apologizing. But those guys all practice against each other. They're also, they all practice against each other. They're all generating deck ideas within each other. So they're not really surprised by good decision making from strong players, good card decision choices from strong players when they go to a tournament. Yeah, they might be played differently, but they're ready for it. Now, how well they adapt in game, I don't think there is any reads that go on in this game. I think people just sort of turn cards sideways a whole bunch. So in that vein, yeah, best of 3. If I was going to go do best of 3, I would eventually like to see sideboards in the game.
I agree. Sideboards, for those who aren't aware, sideboards are a tournament mechanic in Magic whereby you can, in between games, swap out cards from your deck with cards in your sideboard. this is most typically used. You'll make a deck, and you'll know that there will be answers for your deck, and you'll put in the sideboard your answers to those answers. The colloquial term here is a meta, which is a fun phrase. And I agree. I think that sideboards are healthy for card games. I think they'd be healthy for L5R because it lets you change how your deck plays in very significant ways. 5 or 10 cards, however many cards a sideboard might be, and keep in mind a sideboard in Magic is 15 cards, so it is at most
25% of the deck.
Correct. But changing that much of a deck in L5R would be dramatic, and it's a really interesting wrinkle on top of the deck building problem that I really enjoy.
I think why people are in L5R are so averse to sideboards, though, is because, take, I guess, 2 meta cards, On, and I guess if you want to, an equivalent meta, Alter History. On literally says you're playing On or just scoop now, unless you have the event negation. Because On, caps on rockets, it allows you to attack recklessly, and do some other stuff that just so if a design is printing meta like that, obviously you can't do sideboards. So design would have to first answer the call for that and say, okay, we're not going to print I wouldn't even call it silver bullet. I would call it silver nuclear warhead meta. But Suspicions or Alter History is a one shot. You take a province, you have to accomplish some goal to trigger it, and then even then, its hit is 5 honor. Well, if I attack you, you might gain 6 honor off that, so I'm really just getting a free province from you, but it's eating a slot. So there is some interplay in that meta. Stuff like that is not, Alter History might be a strong case for meta if you actually do allow sideboards, but cards like On should never be allowed if they're sideboards, because they're too strong.
Well, even against the Dishonor matchup, you can get Disgrace, you can get
that's what I'm saying.
But, I mean, you can even meta the military, because there now are the military meta cards that say, there's the one that says, hey, you attack me, you don't get straight next turn. Or, hey, you attack me, you lose province.
There are a lot of cards that are not getting run because they seem very narrow, and in an L5R tournament, it is sort of common practice to build to beat military, but you still need to be able to handle honor or dishonor as you can, whereas a sideboard would enable you to be I know what matchup I'm most concerned about, let me start off with that, and then we'll see where the match goes. And it leads to a lot of very interesting play. A lot of the concern here was the time limit was extended. The current time limit is 45 minutes, and then you have a 5-minute period to get your results in, and if you don't get the results in, then you both lose the game, which sucks.
Well, okay, let's stay on that for... Sorry to interrupt, but how many times have we been in a tournament and we've actually seen a judge actually instill a double loss? I've been a judge at several of...
Gen Con, it's happened.
Okay, so the World Championships equivalent.
It's happened at the Austin events. I've seen it go down. It was at New Orleans this past year.
Right.
But okay, so...
And there's also been where it was going to come out to be a double loss, and the TO didn't want it to report a double loss, so he forced one player to concede.
But that's a clear violation of the floor rules right there. I mean, there's times where double losses should be encountered, and I guess it's a small community or people are too afraid or don't want to be that guy who says, yeah, double loss. Or just there
Heads up for our listeners, I have been that guy. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, as a tournament organizer, it's your responsibility to move things along. So, as the judge, it's not fun, but yeah, you have to double loss people.
Well, like myself at this past Cote at New Orleans, we went to time in finals. We went to the time in the extension, and even then, the TO was having to call people to try to figure out other reasons other than the die roll double loss situation, because my opponent didn't necessarily want to do the die roll, and I was like, I'll either double loss or die roll, but I won't concede. And they're like, what options do we have to make you do the concession?
And by the floor rules, it's pretty much someone concedes via some method, or you double loss.
But in a cut, you're not even...
It's really ugly, yeah.
So I've always had the attitude of, it's in the cut, you play till one man's dead. That's...
Well, and it's something to actually bring up in relation to the new floor rules that didn't happen, unfortunately. But With the new floor rules, going to time meant a draw, because in a best of 3 format you can have draws, whereas with our current best of 1 system,
There is no draw.
correct, there are wins and losses and nothing in between. So it dramatically lessens that penalty for hitting the time ceiling. And I know a lot of folks who've been really angry at me because there have been games where the time limit hits, and by the floor rules, play stops when time is called.
Mm-hmm.
You don't finish out the combat, you don't take more turns, the play stops, and you decide who wins and who loses.
I do like how the new floor rules basically say, like, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's easy for the judge to say, all right, the result's not in, draw. Or
And,
player one.
But it's also sort of also built into the time that players will think about. Most people see, oh my God, it's a 75-minute round now, but those last 5 minutes are following what we do now. They're just properly accommodated into the round time, which they weren't before. Another great thing these rules did is that, let's say we have a situation like we ran into in New Orleans where you've got, head judges and TOs calling people because we don't know what's happening here. And there have certainly been cases in the cut at various events where it takes time to get a ruling.
Mm-hmm.
The new floor rules accommodate for extending round time in the case where it takes a judge 10 minutes to find a ruling. Because, hey guys, that's going to happen. And the way it is right now, if it takes a judge 10 minutes to find a ruling, you just lost 10 minutes off your round. There is no round extension for that kind of thing right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, well.
But I've never really had a judge take 10 minutes to find a ruling because
It can happen in some cases, and I think
I've been on both ends of this where I've been the judge where somebody debates, okay, so let's say you and opponent have a disagreement on how a card works. I give a ruling and a player says, no, it doesn't. They answer this on the forums. Judge then has to, a judge can say, no, I'm right, and overstep. Like, I think this is overstepping your bounds if you do this as a judge, where you say, no, I'm right, you're wrong, that never happened. My ruling stands.
Well, then you can appeal to the TO.
But
TO.
No. Under the current floor rules, the head judge has the absolute final word.
No, under the current rules, TO does.
correct.
Really?
TO has the final word, but I have never seen a TO overrule a head judge.
Yeah, but the TO can always say, no, the head judge is correct. We're going to abide by that. If you have an issue after this, you submit a thing to AEG.
Correct.
And
But
AEG can censor me if they want to.
But that's not really like, okay, so you're out $200 by a bad ruling. So then when somebody, I think that's wrong. You should look up the ruling if a player really.
Well, yeah,
insists
but
on it.
but with the current internet now, you can generally get a ruling. within-
Oh yeah, 5 minutes. But
I think it's going to be more and more of a problem as extended and Shiro Big Deck questions become more prevalent.
But those aren't.
Those aren't. Well, in current the new rules that are coming out, you could have actually submitted for a big deck Kote. You could have extended. You could submit it for a strict Kote, an extended Kote.
You could have submitted for a Big Deck Winter Court event. So they're obviously moving towards
Multi-format.
multiple format, and which has already been announced by the company that we're going to have 3 main formats for Ivory Edition play. The first will be Strict, which will be the Ivory Edition base set and the sets that follow it. So none of the dual bug sets. There will be the Arc format, which is what we're used to. So it'll be the dual bugged sets, in this case, Coils of Madness, Gates of Chaos, and Aftermath, as well as the Ivory Edition base set and everything that comes after it. And then there's going to be Extended, which is Ivory Edition and Emperor Edition as one format.
Yeah. And you can submit for any of those 3 formats for your Kote.
Correct, for a Kote, and there are definitely in the rules that you can submit for Shiro Big Deck.
So
And even Strategic L5R as an event.
So, but in the current setup, though, judges are wrong. So,
Yes.
that's the other problem with the current system is, okay, if a judge doesn't want to listen to a player and look up the ruling, like even then a judge can be like, what really stops a judge from going, oh, well, I don't agree with that ruling. There's no oversight.
Well, the TO is the oversight, and if the TO, granted, sure, there's never been a TO overruling us as a judge, but generally a TO is
I don't want to say that's never happened. I'm just saying I've never seen it.
Okay, and generally your TO should also be a secondary means of rules information. So it's not necessarily the TO doesn't know the rules; it's just the TO is being the TO, and he's got someone else to be his head judge.
Yeah.
So if you got 2 judge level people that can confer on rules, there's that. And typically, and again, I've never seen a judge go, I don't feel like looking up that
Yeah,
ruling.
I mean, me neither.
Yeah, we discussed earlier the fact that we don't want to be that guy, and being that guy is going, no, I'm just not going to even pay attention to anything that you're saying, just screw you.
Yeah.
Because the thing with the game being the community like it is, everyone knows who these people are. So
Yeah, and so
if something gets out that you're the judge
So I want to sort of get us off the minutia here and sort of focus in on the big question, because this is minutia and I have let it go on too long, and I'm sorry for that, guys. What do we think of best of three?
Well, when Reese did the design diary for Ivory, he said he wanted more cards to have to take a province for military. And military has always been the fastest method of a victory condition in the format. And so if they want to go to 2 of 3, and if they want to make military slower, that's going to trickle down onto the Enlightenment and the Dishonor and the Honor as far as being that much more faster. Also looking at the cards that have been previewed as far as for Honor and Dishonor, as far as gains and losses, those have also been scaled back as opposed to what we've seen in Emperor. So if you want to go to a 2 of 3 format, you got to give me more cards that'll make it faster, and you got to streamline it so that everyone can at least do military. Because right now, especially in the Emperor, not every clan has a military theme they can reliably do to attempt to win a match. So if I can't go military on you, and I got to fall back to either Honor, Dishonor, or Enlightenment as my primary win condition, I'm going to be slower than the guy that can go military. And if the guy that can go military can always go 2-0 in a round, and I can go 1-0 in a round, I'm going to not get in the top cut of whatever because I have fewer points put up, even though I've won just as many matches or overall game sets as you have. Yeah. And that's my argument for it. And again, harshing on the implementation of the floor rules when the event coordinator says you need to learn how to concede a game to get into 3 games total, that's not implementing a good floor rule. That's you trying to say, if you're going to play slow, concede because you need to try to get 3 matches total, not here's how we handle this as far as you being able to get 2 and 3 games out of the way.
I think they need, if they're going to implement it, they need to let people get adjusted Ivory first. Then they need to say, all right, how many games can we get in a typical round? Then they need to collect. There needs to be data to back up.
I mean, if playtest didn't play with 2 of 3 rounds, don't try to put it out to us. Give it to playtest first because they're the best of the best. They're the guys that have all these cards in advance that they know the next set. Yes, Monty, I see you giving me that look. But
I'm giving no looks.
if playtest hasn't
I'm looking
done
at the ceiling right now. You
anyways,
can't even give me
if
a look.
playtest has not played with 2 of 3 rounds,
But
don't give it to the general floor to be your playtest because
I think you need data from an Ivory Edition environment before you implement massive overhaul rules changes
and
for the.
playtest has Ivory Edition. They've been playtesting
So-
Ivory Edition before Maine has got it.
But
Okay, my 2 cents on this is relatively varied. In general, I'm in favor of it just because statistics say more results is better. The more times you have that, the less times you're going to have, oh, well, I got out of a round because I got deck screwed or because I got blindsided. It's going to help with the blindside. We were talking about that with the last podcast. So, but at the back of my mind, there's a little voice that's going, well, at the same time, some of the most annoying parts of other games, card games that I've played have been where you have the tug of war on one stat, and Honor, Dishonor being that, being a viable playset in this, the tug of war might take huge long, in which case that's going to even more disincentivize people from playing those 2 victory conditions. Because, I mean, if you're sitting in this tug of war for 40 minutes trying to get people up, down, up, down, up, down, and that's one game, that's going to be majorly hurting. Okay, and that's not a concession thing. That's I got a good run, and then, oh no, my opponent got a good run, and such and so forth. And it's not really a place where I would consider conceding. So...
Well, that already happens right now. The tug of war already happens.
But it's only...
I
only
think
one, though.
Paul's point is in regards, like, if we're doing a best of 3 format, those games are going to take.
It's
If
not
I go
possible
75
for,
minutes on an Honor versus Dishonor and we only wind up tying, whereas you go 75 minutes in a military versus
you're going to go
Honor,
2-0 or 2-1.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and it just becomes there is a price for going 2 of 3, which is an increased time for each round. And if we can get a consistent level of play on each round, so that each round comes out properly, then it's going to be okay. If we can't get a consistent play, and I'm remembering terrible things where people like, this was local play, not actually like any tournament, but back in the day with Magic and Elf Ball, where it was just like you're trying to get the one stat that victory, and it goes up and it goes down, up, goes down, and those are the most annoying games ever. So,
even doing practice for local gameplay for tournaments, doing the honor on dishonor, we have to impose the 45-minute time rule because we know we'll go like an hour and a half on a game for honor versus dishonor, just going back and forth.
And those formats are so underrepresented that it's just.
Peter?
Huh?
Do you have any input on this?
Well,
Oh. No.
the other thing to note is that no matter what you do to L5R, its structure, its design, tournament, whatever, there's always going to be players that, I forget who said this originally, but that they play at the speed as fast as glaciers move. There are some players who will always take one game to the time limit because that's the pace they're comfortable with.
And I would argue that every card game has those people. Magic has those people.
And
they're the guys who can get a game done in 10 minutes, and they're guys who are going to take 30 to get one game in.
yeah, and so
And that's why you have the distinction between winning 2 games and winning 1.
I think the real reason why people flared up is because TOs looked at it as it'll take 2 days to run this event, and I can't afford a venue for 2 days. Players looked at it as if it takes 2 days for an event to be run, and I plan on making the cut, I have to take an additional day off work, or we're leaving Sunday night and it's not going to be pleasant for me on Monday, or I have to leave early on Friday, something, which restricts travel for Cotes, which hurts attendance. So there was a lot of TOs and a lot of players who looked at these rules and said, "Rrr." And I think if they had implemented Ivory first, if they had implemented like let people get comfortable with the new card pool, new design, blah 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 blah, and then said, okay, you guys can play these games in 30 minutes. We're going to a best of 3 system. Here you go.
I would also argue that there was certainly an issue of articulation when it came to the floor rules. They were sort of put out there on a Friday, and no response was made for 2 days. And there was not a lot of statements about why we're doing this. One of the things that I think has been going well is the Ivory Edition design diaries, setting up the changes, why we're going to do them, what's the reasoning. So regardless of what we may think of the changes, we at least can understand the logic of the change. And that was, I feel, probably the biggest issue with this rollout, above and beyond the rules themselves. And I do think best of 3 is simply a better format, and I would like to see it happen, though it certainly won't be happening for the next Cote season. So, speaking of the next Cote season, there have been several changes to cards that cost some people some money to acquire. In a recent episode of the Strange Assembly podcast, which I think we'll try and get in the link when we get this up, they announced that there's going to be changes to the Eternity Bugged cards in Forgotten Legacy. This is 6 cards.
Yep.
They are Colonial Harbor, Entrenched Position, A Game of Dice, Creating Order, Bamboo Harvesters, and Border Keep Experienced are all going to be legal for play in Ivory Edition. Commensurate with that, they have undergone some changes.
There will be an MRP for those.
Yeah. Well,
5 of the 6 cards are getting MRP'd.
Colonial Harbor is unchanged.
Entrenched is just MRP for the
Interrupt.
reaction to be interrupts. Border Keep has gone now from 0 gold cost to 3 gold cost. Still producing 2. It may or may not still have the limited because you will never get it first turn.
It will never. The limit has been removed.
It does not have the flip.
and then Bamboo
that has the option to be able to put 3 cards
you
on
basically get a mulligan, and then Harvesters is still. I noticed they didn't say anything about the trait. The trait's still on there.
Yeah, the trait still will not straighten before your 3rd turn.
Which is kind of funny because
if you get a first turn, it still doesn't straighten.
that's
it's a 3 gold production now. 3 gold cost.
Yeah,
as opposed to being 0, and you still have the option to draw cards and keep them if you're under 5, or cycle if you're over.
yeah.
And then
Game of Dice now costs 3 gold, and Creating Order now only targets 1 unit.
Well, I think the creating order change needed to. All right, so basically, creating order when we tested initially 2 units, no big deal, and then effectively, like as the art proved, that people will draw into creating order and just win games. So I think the change to creating order had to happen. I don't think you can leave it in Ivory affecting 2 units regardless what the like, unless you make it unplayable. Like, 10 gold on creating order would make it unplayable. So 1 unit, good change. The holdings, I think the trait on Bamboo Harvester needed to go. I think it just needed to be a 3 for 2 that had its card draw effect. Because if you're using it before turn 2 anyway, yeah. All right, so Bamboo Harvesters, 3 for 2, right? So, I mean, the trait needs to go. Because if it comes up turn 1, I mean, you can argue that's a play decision or a risk, but it's just not even worth keeping the trait on there. The trait was on there because of how Bamboo Harvester's base worked, and EXP worked as a way of saying, okay, you get card draw, but it costs you little production. That was the trade-off. 3 for 2 is kind of steep in that regard, but
But if it keeps the draw on it,
yeah, I mean,
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I think it is the only card draw holding. Like Temple of Tinkin is cycle.
yeah,
I can't recall.
There's
any
some
other,
destined stuff, but it's the only straight card
like
draw.
like
so
like repeatable card draw.
yeah, so I guess yeah, sure. Colonial Harbor, I think, is a non-issue. I will be. Granted, we say this blind, unless the strongholds are amazing and you have to have them on the defense. Like, Colonial Harbor, kind of worthless in my opinion. But I'll leave that to be corrected.
6 for 5 is definitely going to be
Yeah.
much tougher in Ivory than it is now.
So I'll let base set Ivory correct me wrong, but entrenched position, sure, fine.
It's actually a lot better now.
yeah,
Because battling a card in Ivory Edition is amazing.
Yeah.
For 0
and non-performed, ridiculous.
Well, nothing's performed anymore, but
Yeah, but it doesn't require keyword, doesn't require guide bowing, just it doesn't even require gold. Compare that to the
a small favor from
yeah,
Aftermath.
Or even the holding cells pay 4 ballot at the end of the battle.
yeah.
Though that is slightly better because you can't straighten.
But still, both those things have a gold cost
Correct.
attached to them. This one does not.
Correct.
Or on a loss.
Yeah. Then the last card was Game of Dice, which I think
At 3 gold is now the same thing.
a 2 gold cost could have been fine, but I mean, erring on the side of caution rather than the side of, screw it, we'll deal with it later.
Well, because realize Bamboo Harvester is just 3 gold to
Yeah.
draw a card, 3
Right.
gold to draw
I'm
3
too.
cards.
I'm not sure that Game of Dice, with the prevalence of things like Destined and Expendable, if it will be as valuable at a 3 gold price point.
At least it will not be an auto-include in almost every single deck.
Yeah.
Which is the real thing that they needed to fix. Because, I mean, if you have these 6 Eternity cards that belong in every single
Deck.
deck, you go back to the old problem that we've been having with Emperor, which is the borderline to enter into this game is $200 price point.
And that's just a start. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree. So the only change I really don't like is border keep. It could have been a 2 for 2 with the limited, and I think that would have been fine. But everything else, like, I don't think was.
I actually think Border Keep is still really strong at 3 gold because
Oh, it is.
it's the ability to pitch those sort of 3 not good cards that make it extremely valuable.
Yeah, I mean,
Peter, do you have? I mean, you bought Forgotten Legacy for those 6 cards. So how do you feel with the sudden revelations here?
I do agree about, like, because you have those cards being staples in every deck right now, and so as far as like border keep goes, what are they getting? What's getting rid? What's the effect that's getting rid of for
The flip that Border Keep
yeah,
has.
it
is
has
gone.
no limited flip.
no limited flip? Okay,
Because it's not going to be
does it still have? Does it still have the first turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, it's
It'll still have the first turn, and it'll have the hand.
No.
It just
only
has
has
the
a
hand.
hand.
It is
Oh, just
gold
the hand.
producing and cycles 3
There's a
cards on your
rulebook
hand.
effect now. You
Okay.
got the first turn, you can flip up to 4 cards down and flip them about face. That's just
Right.
not going to be rulebook, so you don't need border keep anymore. So it won't give you any more turn flips because if you have the ability to somehow turn it back on with another card.
Yeah, I mean, still keeping the toss ability or whatever is still good, especially like if you're doing public libraries or whatever, you can see if you actually want to use it or not.
I mean, none of the changes have changed these cards into, oh my god, terrible cards. They have
Yeah.
simply brought them back to a line where they're not auto includes.
Yeah, and I do actually like. I don't remember what you. what y'all said all the other ones were, but for like Game of Dice, I mean, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, putting a gold cost on it, I think, yeah, I think it enhances it a little bit. Not the functionality of the card itself, but just the decision making on whether or not it's like, do I need to use this card right now or not?
I think it makes it a card that Honor and Dishonor are going to use, and Military is going to have something better for that 3 gold to be spent on.
Yeah, gold
Or
is going
should
to be
have
so
something
much
better.
more dear in Ivory that it's going to be a question.
It also depends on what kind of actions you're going to be running that actually require you to discard, because if you are pitching your hand to actions, which there are a lot more actions now to actually pitch cards to, not for their action but for their focus value, then paying 3 gold to replenish your hand with 3 cards.
Yeah, if everyone's running, sorry.
Yeah, there's the guy like, I pitch a card, I value, I lower my focus value, I pitch a card, I gain honor equal to my focus value, I pitch a card, I do X.
Yeah,
Suddenly
I
I'm
pitch a
losing-
card and I gain 4.
Yeah.
4 is never
If
without a
I'm
weapon.
losing cards for actually doing things other than what the card states, then I'll need to replenish my hand that much more faster, which paying 3 gold isn't necessarily... It's like paying 3 gold now for an attachment, like for Satoshi's Dual War Fans. You're paying 2 gold for card cycle. Now you'd be paying 3 gold for 3 cards. It's not necessarily... Sure, 0 gold cost for 3 cards is great, but 3 gold for 3 cards isn't necessarily, oh my god, why would I ever run this?
It's still strong, but I don't know that I would include it in, say, a fast military deck anymore. But there were decks that were cutting it in Emperor Edition because the card draw simply came too late.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you're not going to see. I think it and BK confounded a lot of problems, because if you BK'd, you'd see, well, you'd have your 6 plus 3. That's 9 cards. If you saw a game of dice in any of those 9 cards, you're now extending that by 2 more to 11, then 12 plus your end of turn. You've seen more than a 4th year Fate deck, and have made some choices about what you want to include, what you want to cut. So decks that were really powerful, if they got a certain card, could now amp up and more or less guarantee in certain situations that they'd see at least 1 copy of that. And I think putting a gold cost in Game of Dice and removing BK removes that. It won't have such a dire effect on the game, but it'll have you will not be able to make these like Gambit Hail Mary plays where the guy's actually going to catch the ball every time.
Yeah. Decks that require 3 or 4 card combinations are going to go, oh, well, yeah, that's not likely to turn up in my hand.
I do still think Creator in Order is worth running in almost anything.
Oh yeah, but it's not.
To me, the ability to negate force pumps is much more important now.
Oh yeah, no, with the way that Ivory's working, yes.
Well,
I mean, with the new Shameful Injury that will target either force or penalties, or either bonuses or penalties, you don't necessarily have to worry about that.
but that's 2 cards. I mean, creating order targeting 2 units in Ivory would be ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but even with it targeting 1
But it's the
unit,
versatility still, and that you might not have. I think it's called Breaking the Rhythm, which is an aftermath card that, without presence at the battle, lets you negate force bonuses or penalties to a card.
Yeah.
So, I think overall these are fairly agreeable changes. I don't think, besides Bamboo Harvester's XP being made somewhat less useful.
The trait is is no longer needed.
It's more of an artifact.
We'll
Yeah.
see. Well, he's going to MRP the cards, so we'll see what
We'll
actually
see.
happens when they actually get MRP'd.
He might have
Correct. That is something we did not bring up. Brian Reese did announce that in this there will be MRP packs of these cards, so it won't be a matter of you have to sort of go onto the Oracle and make sure your card text is all right. They will be sending these cards out. They haven't announced how yet. I'm assuming to Stronghold stores or to Imperial Assembly subscribers.
Yeah.
So if you're not at a Stronghold store or you don't have an Imperial Assembly account, you probably want to get on that soon. Maybe save yourself some Forgotten Legacy money. Then again, if you play Legacy and you haven't bought Forgotten Legacy, you should probably buy Forgotten Legacy.
Yeah, I can't. Almost every card that I've seen in Forgotten Legacy has, with a few glaring exceptions, has a place in Legacy big deck tournaments formats.
Yeah.
Which I like that. Well, we'll save that for another discussion.
Big Deck, I am fairly certain, will be its own episode when we get around to it.
Yeah.
Well, once Ivory rules hit, we can see how they actually will impact the Ivory.
It should be very interesting.
So, back on topic. So the 6 changes. We agree they're good. No one who bought Forgotten Legacy for the $18 sale for the 6 cards. I don't see anybody being really unhappy with it. I mean, you have your occasional trolls on the forums, but nothing.
Oh yes, that one guy on
Well,
the forum.
yeah, that one guy, sure.
Oh, he's like, I bought.
Oh,
me and my 9
let's-
friends bought.
Let's
Forgotten
just
Legacy.
let's
Well, yeah.
let's stay off that.
Alright.
But I mean, these changes don't make these cards worthless. Is the real kicker, and so they're still good. They're still good for Ivory. They will still see competitive play. You will still see top
I
8
think the
deck lists.
transposition is going to be in every deck.
Yeah,
And at least they
You-
didn't get banned. I mean, that's the other thing that could have happened. He was like, "Oh, sorry guys, we didn't really plan on having eternity with Ivory. Sorry, here's trade them in for whatever."
So, I think every top 8 deck will have at least one of those cards in it, if not more. So,
So still a good value for your money. Definitely something you still want to look into getting if you haven't. And we'll see how we're going to be able to get new players these cards when it happens. So the sort of last big thing that happened this week is that the new RPG book Secrets of the Empire has come out. Today is Black Friday when we're doing this recording, and a lot of us have just gotten our copies. So first impressions, though, are pretty good.
In general, yeah. It's got a good wealth of information and background information, which of course I enjoy just for attempting to write. In terms of it goes into minor clans, which I don't know. I didn't know how much minor clan stuff is coming in the third, but I remember when I was working on trying to do these sorts of starts thing, having to go all the way back to John Wick's Way of the Minor Clans and having half the information be out of date or not including.
I think that's Reese Sosby, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
It's on my shelf. Hold on a second, you guys.
So, whoever author is, and my apology to the author if I got the author wrong, but it basically going back all the way to there and having to go find that and not having like all of the more modern ones like Bat Clan and Oriole Clan and all of those sorts of things. So that's going to be a great help. The realms I think are also just going to be really useful. Imperial families. I don't know about the information. I didn't really look through the information because I've never been hugely up on, oh my god, I want to play a Seppin. But in general, it's probably going to be better. It's just, I don't necessarily think it needs it. But it didn't get as huge part of the book as some of the other things. And I think the best thing that I saw so far is the number of additional sects of monks, because that needed to be put into play.
Reese Sosby, for those who are wondering. Also with a credit from some other folks that people might recognize, like Rich Wolf and Sean Carmen. So a latter First Ed era book in that case.
Yeah. So again, my apologies to the authors because I got the author wrong. But in general, I think that it looks to be a very good book. It looks to have a lot of good information for just different things. I mean, I'm not going to say that people who are just starting into this should go out and get it, because it's going to be a lot of background information that's just going to go straight over your head and you're not going to care. But for anybody who's reasonably into this thing, run it, have at least played 4 or 5 games of the card game, not the card game, of the RPG, they should get this book, in my opinion, anyway.
Peter, you got to glance at it. Any first impressions?
Well, like I said when we were off mic, I do like that they included the better quality weapon smithing mechanics and actually adding in special abilities that you can put on weapons. Like certain ones will add like a 1 keep 0 to attack or better initiative for your weapon or whatever. And there's even one that's just like, hey, I can put my signature on this. I mean, I like those like little bits of flavor that you can actually put on to, making your character a little more, an ability to make your character a little bit more unique. So should you get like a unique weapon made for you. And I think there's even a thing in there where you can
It'll be really important for Heroes of Rokugan, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and there's even a thing in there that says, you can make, if you're a Caillou or Seasmith or whatever, you can make sacred weapons now, too.
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So full disclosure department here. I worked on Secrets of the Empire. I contributed sections to the Ronin and Monk chapters. if you've read it, the sects of the Brotherhood, not the actual temples, but the Fortunists and Questioners and stuff like that. That's all me. I did a lot of sort of research on how actual Japanese monasteries and temples work to sort of get the hierarchy of the Brotherhood of Shinsei down. I was a big fan of Way of Shinsei. It was, I think, actually the second source book I got for L5R. When I was hunting down books after the L5R 4th Ed core hit, I was like, I need information. Emerald Empire and whatnot wasn't out yet, so I went down to half price books, and Way of Shinsei was one of the first books I managed to get. So it was really fun to work on that. And as far as Ronin, I got to write a lot about Toturi's army and the Legion of 2000 and the Legion of the Wolf. I got to sort of write about the Disciples of Sun Tao, which have been kind of a thing in the RPG, but haven't gotten a whole lot of story time. And it was really neat to sort of expand on that and give them some more interesting story hooks. And as far as the book's gone, I have not spent a lot of time in the mechanics yet. I am pretty pleased so far. I'm really happy that there are Minor Clan, Imperial, and even Ronin heritage tables now. I really like the heritage tables. I think they're a great role-playing aid for new players. You don't know anything about the setting, you get on the heritage table, you roll some dice, and you're good to go. And you'll get some cool story hooks. I think, actually, if you look at it in first edition, Ginawa was a character you could make using the heritage tables in first edition, so that's pretty cool.
I will have to say that any first-time player who decides they want to play a Ronin is also
God
choosing,
help your soul.
is choosing hard mode L5R just straight up.
Well,
I mean, if that's how you play your games, then that's how you play your games. If you want to be,
well, we have
bleeped on,
well, we have discussed L5R. I think it is fair to say has some difficulty levels. I think if you play a clan samurai, you're playing L5R on normal difficulty. Things are, somewhat challenging, but you've got this whole clan behind you. You've got a school. It's pretty sweet. We're good to rock and roll.
Minor clans.
Well,
that's you're getting okay. You got your great clans, normal. Minor
I would
clans.
just say clan samurai. Minor clans are still better off than hard mode.
Well, yeah.
Hard
Well,
mode
they-
is
they
hard mode
still
is a
get a-
clan Ronin.
Yeah, they still get a family bonus. They still get a school bonus, as opposed to Clan Ronin, which just get a...
Well, clan Ronin get families, so that you basically just make a guy. You just don't get anything past rank 1 in your school.
Right.
So, all right, you're gonna hit the higher insight rank. You're not really gonna get a whole lot out of it. That's fine. But if you want L5R on Dante Must Die,
There you go.
you want True Ronin, and none of this True Ronin take a school and get stuff for that. No. There is one
Ronin,
option.
True Ronin.
They added another one of just straight up basic Ronin.
Does it get less XP than starting like the normal Ronin do? or-
All I saw was like
It was
traits.
it was an experimental. It was a
Yeah, it's
GM
optional.
option. It's
Yeah,
a
it's
GM
optional.
option.
alternate
So,
option. Yeah.
Ronin have a school? Oh my god! Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just all like, I don't know how to make a Ronin. Well, here is this handy dandy little, generic, the generic Ronin. It has.
Such an inspiring name.
I knew.
well, I mean, they have other things that are not that are. Oh my
true,
god! awesome.
But it's a basic Ronin school.
Yeah.
It actually, and it has 1 through 5 ranks and everything like that. So it's all because in the way that regular Ronin work, you go in and you piecemeal your school stuff together. This one just has hey, this is all laid out for you already, and it's pretty much a true Ronin path. But it's
I don't know. Having things like school techniques, it's too rich for my blood.
it's the easy mode of hard mode.
It's
that makes sense.
the aim assist when you're on that legendary difficulty.
There you go.
But I would say overall, this has been my favorite source book since Great Clans.
Ooh, another thing that I like that I saw in this, in the appendix, it has list of all the schools.
where you can find all the schools.
Oh
yes.
That
So
is
much
that is
time
going to be
saving.
so useful. I
So
wouldn't say
much
that
time
it's
saving.
my favorite since then because, as evidence for the previous podcast, I kind of gushed over Imperial Histories and Imperial Histories too. So I'm going to say that it's not my favorite, but I certainly think it's one of the stronger entries.
Yeah, I saw that and I was all like, "Oh my god, this is so convenient."
This is like when I got the Second City box set, and I got it, I'm not going to lie, for the dice and the GM screen.
Doug and Daniel are over there shaking their heads at us because we're gushing over the RPG right now.
Yeah, and
they're not RPG players. They're just here for the card game.
Hey, I'll say this. The RPG, like if you pull it out and but I mean, like I've seen people who read the story of like Hattori like last breath on Kachiko's lap and like they don't admit it because they're a gamer, but you see the little tear in their eye and they're like, you crying, and they're like, no, it's just spicy food, we're in the South.
So we CCG players can be RPG players.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say this very tactfully. I have not liked the story in a long time, and I think it comes back to the fact that CCG players have too much influence in that.
Oh, it's the living card game.
Right, but when you have card game players influencing like an RPG game when they don't even play the RPG.
Yeah, like I don't care. Like so, in the last recent storyline with like the Warlord and whatnot, I know we're going on a tangent, but I'll get back to it. Like you had, I forget, like the lion, like copper mine thingy, the I don't even know his name, killed like some important like clan Shugenja from the Phoenix. So this guy who's like nearly like the elemental master of water level is beaten by some dude with a pickaxe and like who carves out copper mine for a living.
To be fair, that is a fairly accurate representation of RPG mechanics.
A Zokujin could kill a elemental master of a element.
Okay, and then Civ 1...
And to be fair, if they're carded in the card game, they are usually pretty high level in the RPG.
Yep.
There's not
But a 5-force, 5-chi cavalry naval shug losing to a 3-2 guy with a pickaxe who doesn't even have a battle-oriented, like...
Well, that's all about the RPGs. Like, one hit, one strike could kill you.
Sure.
It's a battle of lethal niceness.
And a guy with, like, a slingshot could take down a battleship, technically.
Well, actually, there was an actual old school story. Kasada was almost killed by a group of goblins because they almost rolled a boulder over him.
Yeah, that's a group of goblins and a boulder. Kasada, as impressive as he is not a battleship. But you see, all your examples, though, are coming from older era cards. You're naming Hida Kasada. You're naming these iconic characters from years ago.
Okay, Kulan.
Well, with the 4th edition stuff, it's all timeline neutral anyway, so you can name whoever you want.
Which is one of the advantages of timeline neutral is that you can go back to the places where you felt that the story was good. I'm just right now...
I'm not saying the story is bad. I'm saying that your most emotional connecting moments in the story came from when CCG players had less influence in the story and your RPG players had more.
So now I'm just, the back of my brain's like going, let's see if I can make Daigotsu Miki into someone really...
He is still alive.
Brian Reese, if you're listening, I hate Daigatsu Miki. I hate the card. I'm gonna I'm a hunt down.
What I'm hearing is we need Miki XP in the base set.
No,
I mean, Paragons still are the theme for
Paragons
Snyder.
are the theme, and he's played right now.
no.
I mean, he's 8 force for 7 gold. Or actually,
He's 8 force for 6 gold.
6 gold.
I'm gonna hunt down Daigatsu Miki to the point where like that card becomes valuable because I've torn so many of them up.
And he's actually worth a point of personal honor, which in Ivory will actually gain you honor when you bring him into play.
I'm dying on the inside right now.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to Breach of Etiquette. This is Manji. I'm here with Peter, Paul. We're very apostolic here. Daniel and Doug. And we thank you very much for listening to the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment here on YouTube. Thanks. We'll see you later.
This is when we oots bonsai, right?
We didn't do it last time. Oh well.
Maybe it'll just be like in every other one.
Yeah.
Oots bonsai. I don't know.
Oots.
There we go.
Okay, I have a question. If
okay.
we still are recording, how did that tradition come into L5R? Because I honestly don't remember what started it.
The first time I heard Oots Bonsai, I was at Gen Con in 06.
Yeah, but I mean, like...
It's been a thing since...
Well, I mean...
I've heard stories of it at least as far back as Gold.
Like, I've heard it before 03. Like, I heard it when I was in high school, which was like
So if anyone knows, let us know because this sounds
Yeah.
like a story we should.
Yeah,
be
like
familiar with.
this is like yeah.
Well, the Uds Bonsai thing is, it's still kind of, a traditional like Japanese,
Yeah,
battle cry and
but
everything
who,
like that.
Okay,
No
Robo-
other card game has a battle cry.
Oh,
Yeah.
they do. Their BattleTech had to steal it. They like, who are we? And then they scream their name, and it's like they're clearly trying to copy us. But like a bunch of pasty white gamers, and let's admit it, we're all pasty white gamers here, and like the few ladies who put up with us, thank you, ladies. I don't see us really getting into like the whole fervor of like like burly men with like leather armor and just beating the daylights out of each other. Well, some of us do.
I do that.
Anyway,
We're gonna go ahead and actually end this now, guys.
Yeah, we should probably end this before this starts getting a little more
Thank you
awkward.
for your patience. Oh my god!
all right. Hey, anyway,
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much. This is the Austin crew. And hey, enjoy some Alphavar this week.
Yay.
Yay.
all right.
Such enthusiasm.